hard time or no time. Just remember, it's a thin line. Hello, everyone. Teacher William here. And as I was editing this episode, I wanted to reach out to you guys real quick with a couple disclaimers. Number one, somehow suicide comes up in this episode. And Bossman and I want to make it very clear that we understand that suicide is not a joking matter. That's a very serious matter. And I Googled it. And if you're in the US and you struggle with these thoughts or these emotions, please reach out to 1 800 273 8255. 1 800 273 8255. And that's the suicide prevention hotline. You're worth it. You have value, and don't give in to those thoughts. Okay, I've taken up enough of your time. Please enjoy the show. Welcome, everyone, to It's a Thin Line. I'm Teacher William, Minion William, or one of the many other names that people might call me. And I'm here with my good friend. We're back. Boss Man, how you doing, Boss Man Leon?
Good. I'm good, Teacher Will. I'm glad to be here again, man. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, we just want to, we're going to say it again, but just thank everybody again for the awesome feedback. And today we're going to talk about our first day, and we're going to take a look at both angles, first day of a CO walking the beat, and the first day of a 18-year-old, well, newly convicted burglar, I guess, walking through the gates of San Quentin. So let's talk about maybe expectations versus reality. Obviously, before you started your very first day, you had some expectations. It's only human. And more or less, did your reality meet those expectations, and why or why not?
Well, remember in the last episode, we talked about how I did the prison tour with San Diego State,
Hmm.
going to San Quentin, Old Folsom, New Folsom, uh, Tracy. Just to dive into a little bit, in Tracy, I had a member who was on the yard while I was walking, talk shit to me. I've never had that. I didn't even know what the hell the black hand was at the time, and he had it on his chest, a big hand. Finally, the officer was like, "Hey, you know who that guy is?" I said, "I have no clue. He just said he wants to kill me." So, taking that in mind, my predisposition going into the academy was I'm going to die. I never wanted to work in a correctional facility, but I heard this was different. So my expectation was show no fear, show no stuttering or shakiness in my voice, stand up tall,
Yeah, yeah.
don't be a punk. You were a punk, they're going to see it and they're going to see you through. They're going to see right through you. So my expectation was the worst. I expected guys to come up and talk trash. I expected gangland. I expected the shows you see on TV, American Me, blood in, blood out, La Onda. I expected that. However, the very first step, and this is during my academy. So my first step, I'm going to go into with the academy in civilian clothes, was freaking hilarious. These back then we called them inmates, right?
Hmm.
It was politically correct to call people in a federal detention inmates.
Hmm.
Later, it was not politically correct to call them inmates. It is demeaning. You call them detainees. Fuck that. It walks like a duck. It's a duck. You're
You
locked
know,
up. You're locked up in a prison. You're an inmate.
yeah, I just to jump something in. I remember when I first got transferred. I don't know who my father spoke to. I don't know. He was maybe trying to find me where I was in the system. I'm not sure why this conversation happened. But yeah, an ICE official told my father, because my father said, "Well, where are you going to lock him up?" And the ICE official told him, "Well, we just want to be very clear. Your son is not under arrest. He's on merely being detained." And my father said, "Well, let me ask you a question. Does he have a key to the door?" And they said, "No." Okay, can he go in and out as he pleases? And the man said, "No." Well, the man's locked up. you know. So yeah, go ahead. So yeah, I completely understand, but detainee, inmate. I would say the only difference between this vernacular would be between inmate and convict. We can get into that in a whole nother
Right.
episode. But yeah, inmate and detainee are pretty much, synonyms. But what I would like you to focus on, if possible, would be your first day walking in. That's it. You're done with the academy.
Okay.
Regardless of whatever the academy taught you, whatever. Um, you still had expectations of walking. I remember when I first became a teacher, I imagined my first day, and yeah, that it nowhere even close. But
Right.
um so you're done with the academy, you're ready to go, you got your shift, you got your shift boss, you know where you're going. Day one, boom. What was your expectation and reality?
So because I'm a big guy, because I had security experience, because I worked in juveniles before that for a year, I had no clue they were going to put me with the high levels, which means these are inmates coming from state and federal penitentiaries, minimum 1 year incarceration. So I looked at the captain. I said, "What are you doing? I'm a new guy. And you're sending me to the what I thought was going to be the worst of the worst of the worst." But back then they were red. You remember they were
Mm-hmm.
red,
Yeah.
red for dangerous, the most violent, higher levels inmates. So he's like, "Look, man, you can handle it. We're here. We're here for you." I said, "Okay, fine." So as I'm walking down to the unit, which was A unit, they put me in Alpha Delta Pod, which was a high level inmates that come from level 3 yards and up, I believe. Um, and there's this other rookie coming down the corridor with me, and they put him in the opposite pod in AA. So back then, we didn't have a high level PC pod. It was all high levels, and then the shoe next door. Thank God we had some veteran officers in those pods. So we walk in and we're like, "Hey, man, good luck." I walked through the door and it was like somebody who you see coming in and he's like covered in rabies and bumps and you're like the spectacle for everybody. Everybody was looking at me like, we got a new guy. Yes, sir. So I looked, first thing I did, I got a pass down from the officer. "Hey, man, what's going on? Anything I should know?" "No, it's calm. Just leave them alone and they'll leave you the fuck alone." "That's it?" He's like, "Yeah, man, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it." I had butterflies in my stomach. I was nauseous. I was shaky. I knew one rule that my ex-wife told me. If they come up to you asking you for a favor, you tell them, "I don't do favors. How can I help you?" That was my answer to everything.
Yes, yes, yes. I do remember that answer quite a few times. Yes.
So my expectation was I was going to be surrounded by American me, La Onda, all these murderers and rapists and child molesters and serial killers, and they're going to make me their prey. They're going to come at me and try to extort me and tell me they know me, and I'm going to fight to the death. That was my expectation. I was scared out of my mind. I was so scared. And I remember every 2 minutes, someone was coming up to me asking me for something. Stupid shit. I didn't know at the time they were testing me. How far can we get to see how much he's going to give us? You know? So the reality of it was they look like me, full of tattoos. They walk like me. They talk like me. They're just normal men who got caught up doing stuff. At no time, honestly, did I feel threatened. Actually, I think they even were nice to me to see if that tactic would work. So I could let them out the pod to go look at a book while they were going to do their thing
Mm-hmm.
or do their signs to the shoe, you know? So the expectation was movies, walking the yard in San Quentin, where or Folsom, where I had a veterano OG in Folsom come up behind me and say, "Hey, you ever been with a man?"
It
But
happens. It
you
happens.
know, the expectation, the reality were two different things because we have these constructs we create in our minds. But
Yeah.
I was scared. I was really scared.
But in the end, it like you said, it wasn't close to what you really expected. And
No,
all
not
right,
at all. Not at all.
all right, all right. That's a good take. All right. Well, in my case, I think that may he rest in peace, DMX. I think he's one of the most, not one of the most, but he's severely underrated. And he in a song, "Slippin'." He said, "I'm ready for the world, or at least I thought I was. Bagging when I caught a buzz for thinking about how short I was. Going too fast wouldn't last, but yo, I couldn't tell. Group homes and institutions prepared my ass for jail. They put me in a situation forcing me to be a man when I was just learning to stand without a helping hand." And man, I remember I didn't hear these words until after I had gotten out of prison. I never heard this song in prison or before. I don't know what year it came out, "Slippin'" by DMX. But those words really summed up. I mean, when I heard them, it punched me. I mean, and the part "without a helping hand," I mean, I want to give, I never in any of these podcasts want anybody to think that my father and my mom weren't there for me. Yes, I grew up in the group homes. Yes, ended up in the penitentiary, and yes, I'm currently sitting in a third world country. After having been deported. But my parents are good parents. I mean, they did everything they could. My dad showed up to every court date. He fought so that I wouldn't have the problem with immigration, which I eventually did have, but it wasn't on him. He asked every judge to help, and they just didn't help. Um, so but in those group homes, you get helpless. I mean, it's just it's a whole nother story. So I say that because when I was about 15 or 16, I already knew where I was going. Um, and I don't say that with, like, I don't want nobody to feel bad or nothing, but I was very practical. I understood. And I pretty much, I've told this story to my pops, by about 15 or 16, I started going to the public library, the San Jose Public Library, and I started reading every book I could get on prison. I mean, every book I could get my hands. I read Monster Cody's book. I
Yes,
read.
sir.
I can't name all the books because I just can't. That one sticks out to me. But "Do or Die," it was written by a lady. But that was another great one. So I read and a lot of books, believe it or not, about San Quentin. And I remembered the group home I was living in at that time. I got home one day and I had a stack of books. I had like 4 or 5 books, and the group home counselor looked at me and he told me, he asked me, he says, "Hey man, how come every time I see you, you're reading a book about prison?" And I told him directly, I said, "Well, that's probably where I'm gonna end up, so I should probably know about as much as I can get, you know." And he actually looked at me and he said, "Hey man, at least you're honest with yourself, you know?" And that
Yes,
was it.
sir.
And so I had read, but the majority of the books I read were I didn't read any fiction. I read all nonfiction, so these were all true stories. And everybody puts a 10, a dub on the 10, but um exaggerate a little bit, but they were telling true stories. I believe that these guys were telling true stories, and nothing seemed outlandish. Nothing seemed like it couldn't happen. So I got to tell you, I have a couple first days. When I walked into county jail, I actually felt relief. I was on the streets. I was hooked on meth. I was drinking, I didn't have any money to eat, but I was, stealing, burglarizing for some meth and some weed and some drink. So I was in bad shape. I went in at like 110 pounds when I was finally arrested. They had to put me on watch because, if I was coming off of withdrawals. But to be honest with you, like I said, I knew where I was going. I knew what was happening, and I knew what was headed my way. So when I first walked into county jail, the biggest felt feeling I had, expectations and reality were 100%, and I felt relief. It was over. I was caught. I'm on my way. Now, things change very rapidly in county, but at that very first moment, now walking through San Quentin, the very first day, I got to tell you, reality and expectations were probably exactly the same. I knew what was coming. When I woke up, I had fallen asleep on the bus like a knucklehead.
Now, can I ask you, how old were you when you hit San Quentin?
I was 18
Okay.
years old. I
Okay.
would I would turn 19 in San Quentin. So I woke up right before the gate, right when the bus was going into the Sally Port. And in Quentin, they roll you right onto the yard. I got off the bus. There was a line of people. And then in that line, I don't want to get into this story, but in that line, I would be asked one fateful question that would truly dictate. This program's called a thin line, and that thin line showed up at that moment. Unfortunately, I got caught on the wrong side of that one as well. So to be honest with you, I would say overall, with regard to, I guess the one I got caught off regard is ice. For some reason in my dumb brain, I thought ice would be a little bit more relaxed, but it turned out that ice was just the same as anywhere else. Matter of fact, it was actually more repressive, more psychologically punishing than any state penitentiary I ever went to. We can get into that later. Uh, Let me tell you, there's only two times in the time that I was locked up that I ever considered offing myself. In county jail when I was 18, yeah, I hung myself, and the only reason that I survived is I can't measure. Um, so yeah, I
I
jumped.
don't mean to laugh, man. That's funny as hell.
Yeah. It is, and I'm not making light of any suicide. Please, if you got any of those thoughts, please get help. I can just tell you, I feel you. I've been there.
Hmm.
I tied that thing and I jumped. And thank God I can't measure. And then the other time was in ice, man. That place racked my head more times than one, psychologically speaking. Like I said, the ice was the only one because for some reason I thought it would be cooler. I thought, man, I'm leaving the state because the state sucks, man. It just sucks, man. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go over these ice. I'm being detained. Maybe they'll serve us better food. But yeah, nah, that didn't happen. So ice got me. Ice got me. But with regard to county jail, San Quentin, going into the state, penitentiary system, it didn't catch me off guard. Now I want to be clear. I'm not saying I'm a tough guy. I'm not saying anything like that. Like I wasn't afraid. I'm not saying that. I heck yeah, I was afraid. First night I can still remember holding on to the bars of San Quentin, doing everything I could to hold every tear in because I just figured, man, I'm 18 years old and this is where I got myself. So I'm screwed. My life is done. Nothing good is gonna happen in here for me. This is it. So, but I gotta say, like DMX said, group homes, juvenile hall, institutions, psychiatric wards, all those places just prepared me. And you might look at them and say, well, you weren't at home. Yeah, okay, but I was headed to a very bad place, and these places prepared me. I can point to each lesson I learned in each one and how I use those lessons in the pen. So for me, expectations and reality pretty much, yeah, pretty much the same except for ice. So but that was pretty good to see that your expectations and your reality were far different, and your first day was, even though you were scared and nervous, thankfully nothing even close to bad happened.
And let me add, Teacher Will, that that's why I said before, and a couple of reviews that we got was they were praising me for saying that I respect the inmates because they're human beings, you know. we share the same emotions. We love, we hate, we cry, we feel fear, we feel pain. And I'm glad we're talking about this because just because I'm an officer or I was an officer and you were an ex inmate,
Mhm.
we were both scared, you know,
Yeah.
but we prepared ourselves mentally uh, for it. Now, later, hopefully, we'll get into my first week there because my first week dictated the rest of my career on how I approached everything, everyone, every incident. I don't, life can't prepare you. And as an inmate and as an officer, we can't prepare for what's going to happen the next day because we don't know. It could be our day.
Yeah.
It could be our day. Something can happen. You'd be in the wrong place, the wrong time, and you get stuck, or I get stuck.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm glad we're talking about this. Next topic. What's up?
Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Boss man, you said you wanted to give some thanks.
Yes, sir. I want to thank the overwhelming responses I received in a matter of less than 12 hours for our first podcast and the overwhelming positive responses from phone calls to text messages to Instagrams to Facebook to instant messaging of individuals who I grew up with, you know, a couple in the hood who said, "Hey, man, your story is incredible. It brought me back to a time when we would go to the park and we were poor, but yet we succeeded. And here you're telling your story, how you have a relationship with an ex-inmate and how you've connected in a world that right now is in turmoil between races and politics and a pandemic, but yet we're showing that no matter what, if we love and care for one another and we're positive and respect one another, anything is possible. You're over there in El Salvador. I'm over here in the U.S. in San Diego, and we still have this great relationship. And so I want to give shout out to everybody who's been positive. And it just gives me drive and motivation to tell our stories. And people are saying, "Hey, we want more." They were pissed off because they were like, "Oh, this is the intro and that's it." You should. We want more. So thank you to everybody. You know, God bless. And like I said, I keep it real. I keep it raw, and I'm gonna tell it like it is. Thank you, Teacher Will.
All right. Yeah, I gotta agree with boss man. Thank you for everybody showing love. Shout out to my wife who supports me and everything. And she's really pumped about this and our sound man, uh Teacher Pie. He's behind the scenes. He helps us with the editing and stuff. We really appreciate that as well. Shout out to him. And well, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Remember, show some love, always show some respect, and remember, it's a thin line. See you next time.
Peace.